Hi, Mrs. Lackaboo here. I'm glad you guys joined me. Who's ready for a dissection today? So we're meeting today, general science class, because I couldn't be with you. So we are going to do finally get to our sheep's heart dissection today. But before we get there, I just want to let you guys know we're in module 14. Remember, it's talking about the respiratory and the circulatory systems. Today we're going to focus on the circulatory system. The heart is the key to that working in our bodies, okay? So in class this week, remember, we did a diagram, all right? We talked about the different chambers of the heart, and we talked about some of the vessels that are coming off of the heart. There's a lot going on here, and I'm going to try to point out as much as I can. So remember, the orientation of the heart is in between the lungs. So the heart is very much working in connection with the lungs. So we're going to talk about how that works. I don't have any lungs here today, but I have a heart, okay? So we're using a sheep's heart today because it's very similar to a human heart, being that there are 4 chambers, and when we get inside, you're going to hopefully get to see them for yourself. Now, a few of my students actually have a heart at home, so you guys, you have the supplies I gave you. You've got your dissection tray. I gave you a scalpel so that you can cut, being very careful about that. And I would recommend you guys get some couple of old pencils. I'm going to show you why, all right? For those that are just watching, you can pause and go as quick as you want, walking through the steps. All right, so for those of you that have the heart that your parents picked up from me the other day, go ahead and hold on to it. Put your gloves on, all right? Let's cover up our fingers. But I want you guys to see, for those that don't have one, you can turn it around and you're trying to figure out, well, what's the front, what's the back, what's the top, what's the bottom? So I'll let you guys know, for your heart, do you see how it's got this kind of triangular bottom? That is the bottom of the heart, called the apex, okay? So this is the top of the heart. So if this heart was in my body, it would fit like right here, okay? Now, where does it go? This way? Does it go that way? Or does it go this way? There is a right versus wrong, okay? So I want you guys to look. Do you guys see this groove that's going diagonally down here? It's like a natural groove in the muscle. If you guys can see it, let me get a pencil. It's this lighter color. Do you guys see that? It's kind of diagonally going through. That groove going that way shows you the front of the heart. If you look at the back of the heart, there is a groove like that, but it goes straight down. All right, so that one's going down versus this groove is going here, okay? Now, if you notice, I have a little black spot here. The reason is I put a little pin in there. For some reason, my heart in transport has this little flap that shouldn't be there. It just got cut open, so that's why I was trying to hold it down for you. So now what I want you guys to think about, remember the diagram that we did in class, okay? So this is the way the heart should go. So over here, remember when we did our drawing, you see the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium. So even though it's on your paper looking backwards, left to right, when you put it up to your body, it's correct. Right, right, left, left. So the heart is going to do the same thing. So this is going to be the same. This is your right atrium, right ventricle, then your left ventricle and left atrium are going to be on those sides. And when we're going to cut open, hopefully you can see all the chambers. All right, that's the names of the 4 chambers. All right, so as we take a closer look at our heart, we have now discovered where the front and the back is. We know which side is the right side, which side is the left side. And if you notice too, if you have one of these, squeeze on this side of the muscle on the left side is much tighter than the right side. I don't know if you can notice that. It's a lot squishier on the right. The left is really tight. And the reason being is this left ventricle that we've been talking about in class is the last chamber that has to squeeze really hard to push the blood out of the heart to go to the whole body. Remember, the circulatory system is moving blood around. It has to take the blood and get the oxygen throughout the blood, or throughout your body. So I want you guys to see that some of these vessels that we're talking about, and if you have one and you have some pencils, go ahead and notice that there are some openings here. So these are arteries that come out of the heart. This is the aorta, the main one. So if you have one of these, you can actually try to stick your pencil down into the chamber, and then later we can hopefully see where it went into the chamber down in here. Remember, these chambers are open areas for the blood. All right, so you'll notice that there's vessels here where the blood can come back out of the heart. There's also, if you notice in the back, there's some openings here. Some of these vessels are vessels where the blood comes back into the body after it's gone, transported all the blood from your body. It needs to come back for more oxygen. And then a couple of these vessels, there's all kinds of ones. There's lots of them. You can kind of pursue this and look at more anatomy pictures and look at your diagram. Remember the diagram I gave you in class? It shows you all the different kinds of vessels that are coming in and out of the heart. And we've talked about the pathway, and we'll do that again. So some of these vessels would be the vessels that are connected to your lungs. So the blood is going to come in from the body, flow into the right atrium, the right ventricle, then it'll go over to the left atrium, it'll go to the lungs, get some oxygen, come back into the left ventricle, and then come shooting basically out this vessel to go to the rest of the body. So that's some of them. There's a lot of them. We're just going to talk about some of the key ones. All right, so hopefully you have a little orientation, and like I said, if you've got one of these hearts at home and you want to stick some pencils in to these different chambers, see how far you can find your way into the different avenues, the different ways that you can get into that heart, okay? So you can kind of have them maybe sticking out in maybe 4 or 5 different places if you're able to do that. So we're going to get ready to now cut open so that you can see those chambers for yourself. All right, guys, we're almost ready to cut into this thing. I know you guys are dying to get there and see on the inside what all of this looks like, okay? So I have our diagram to the right. Here's our actual sheep's heart to the left. I have it sitting the same way as the picture, so remember it's kind of backwards from the way it would be in the body. So these are the left side of the heart, and that is the right side of the heart, okay? So the pencils I have coming out, I'm going to try to leave them in so you can see them inside in a minute. But this one, look at our picture. This would be the pulmonary vein that actually is where the blood comes back into the heart, into the left side of the atrium. And then the blood goes to the ventricle and then comes out the aorta, which is this one here, okay? And then the one on the back I have was the vessel that I believe is the superior vena cava. Coming from the body, the blood's coming into the right atrium and the right ventricle, all right? So remember, this side is the stronger side of the heart because this side of the heart has to pump really hard to get the blood out, okay? So it's a tougher part. So if you have a heart, if I gave you a heart and you have one at home, I want you guys to take your scalpel and be careful with your scalpel. They're very sharp. And all I want you guys to do is turn your heart on its side, all right? We are going to try to do a cut as carefully as we can, basically down the line, and we're going to go through and open it like a book, okay? So let me do this, being very careful where my fingers are placed, cutting down into the cutting board or your plate, and not cutting fingers. Do not cut into your hand. This might take a little. I'm keeping the pencils in, so let me see how this works. It's actually a tough muscle, but it cuts pretty well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it to its other side, and let's see if I can hopefully find my line on the other end. My scalpel is not as large, as deep as the heart is. Ooh, I found it. So we're going to find our connection. I'm going to carefully try to open this up for you guys. I'm hitting a pencil. But I want you guys to see that in a second. Okay, I'm having to carefully see the pencils in there. You're starting to see where those chambers are, but I'm trying to get it to open for you. It may not open fully with my pencils in the way. Let's try it this way. Here we go. Cutting through the chambers, through the vessels that we talked about. All right, I'm going to turn my scalpel. All right, let's see if we can open it. Oh, there we go. Okay, Now, let's see if you guys can see this. Okay, so let me take the pencils out. I want you guys to see how those vessels actually landed inside of a chamber. But let's take them out for a second. And remember, we've opened it up. So it was like this. So let's find our front again. Remember, there's our front with the diagonal line. So we're going to open it this way. Okay. So here we go. All right. So just like our picture, this would be the right atrium, this space in here. And if you have one, you can go ahead and you can use your fingers. You can see that there's a space here. This is where the blood would flow. Okay, then this area down here is what they call that right ventricle. Now, do you guys notice there's these strings in between? These strings, there's probably a fancy name for it, but these would be also called heartstrings, if you've heard of that. And it has to do with valves. So if you've heard of heart valves, these are the valves that will actually allow the blood to go from chamber to chamber and not let it go back the opposite way. So it's only going to allow this to go this direction and not back up and go in the wrong direction. So these are really important, these different, what we'd call heartstrings, and the valves that allow this blood. So the blood comes in, like I said, it comes through the vena cava, comes in through here like that vessel. The blood flows in, and then look at our picture. It actually flows out to the lungs. So it's going to go out this way, and our vessels got cut, but the vessel would go out this way and then into our lungs so that the lungs can now get the blood and oxygenate it. Okay, then after the blood has circulated that way to the capillaries of the lungs, it's going to come back in. So this is over here is going to be the left atrium and the left ventricle. Now remember, wait a minute, I take that back. Remember, we have a mirror image here. So we have to look at one side. We need to look over here. This is actually a part of that chamber. So over here seems kind of small, but remember, so this chamber in here would be the left atrium up in here and the left ventricle down here. So if I open this up a little bit, sorry, everybody. I got myself reversed here in the sides that we're looking at. So please check out the correction. You'll see my fancy pencils, my fancy tools. I picked tools that you guys might have at home. So you can see in here, this is where the valves would be and where the two chambers are. You don't see quite as many strings as you do, or at least I see, on the right side. Remember, this is the left atrium. So you can see there's a lot of space in there. And if you were to take your pencils and push them through, you should be able to find the vessel that it came through. You can, if you have one of these, you can manipulate it and find, here we go. There's the vessel. There it goes. All right, so you can see that's where the blood was flowing from the left side of the heart. Now it's going to go out the aorta and go out to the body. So now that the body can get the blood that it needs. All right, so let's see what else. So now you can kind of play around with it. Where were some of the vessels that we saw? If you have one, you can stick your pencils through and see the avenue, see which way they go. See, this was actually a pulmonary vein where the blood came back from the lungs into here. And so there's lots of vessels going in and out of the body and to and from the lungs, okay? So I hope that that is pretty interesting. Look at all these heartstrings. You can see how tough of a muscle. You know that the heart is a muscle. That's important that we take care of our hearts. It is obviously critical for life. And you can see the 4 chambers. All right, and you can, if you have one of these, feel free to open it up further. Take a look at all these different chambers, but try your best to stay oriented. Okay, so remember, this is the front of the heart. That's the back. You can see the different vessels coming in and to and from all these, and the chambers that they are coming from. So I hope you thought that was pretty cool, and taking your diagram can actually see the reality of this. Now remember, when we drew our pictures, remember the blue side, we drew it blue because that's when the blood is coming into the heart from the body, and it needs more oxygen, so it's less oxygenated blood, so it comes in and we draw it blue. It's not blue blood, we just draw it that way. Goes to the lungs, back to the heart on the left side, and then it's pumped back out to the body, so it has oxygen here. So remember, this is the first chamber, second chamber, lungs, third chamber, fourth chamber, and back out. And then it does that. So if you've ever, remember when we did the experiment with our pulse, remember how many times your heart was beating per minute? That's how hard your heart is pumping. And if you're exercising, it's going to pump even quicker. So our hearts have a lot of work to do all the time, and thankfully we don't have to tell it what to do. God made it so that it's an involuntary action. So let's take care of our hearts, keep them healthy, and I can't wait to hear what your comments are. All right, thanks guys for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that. It's pretty interesting, even if in the beginning you thought it was a little bit gross. It's cool to see through science how this really works. It's better than looking at pictures in the book. So when you're done, for those of my students who actually dissected a heart today, what I want you guys to do is save the scalpel. Don't throw that away just yet. Go ahead and take your heart tray and your yucky pencils, put them in a garbage bag. Take your gloves off carefully. So I would say take the edge, pull it through, take the edge, pull it through. That way you don't get your fingers dirty. Throw that in your bag. Tie up your bag. This can go into your regular garbage. Just kind of double tie it. Always wash your hands. That's for everybody. Wash your hands, right? And then go ahead and clean up your area with whatever cleaning supplies that you have. So you've cleaned up your area and cleaned up yourself. Throw away your trash. I hope you can have a sigh of relief. You're done. You did a great job. I'll see you guys next time in class. I'm out. See ya.